With the better weather that we've been having, I've been out taking some landscape photos. Last week we talked about landscape photography in Tutorial Tuesday. This week, it's Throwback Thursday. Welcome back to Throwback Thursday, where we take a slightly closer look at some of the more interesting items in our ever-growing park cameras used department. Now this week, I've been taking out loads of wide-angle lenses. We've got loads of different wide-angle lenses in our used department. You know, I've got things like a Canon 10-18mm, a Sony 10-18mm, so that's DSLR, mirrorless. I've got micro four thirds lenses. I've got loads of different things. In fact, I'll pop a full list of all the lenses we've been using down in the description, so you can go and check that out for yourself. You can go over to the used department and check all of them out. But I've been out taking some landscape photos with these lenses. Now, something that I've found very interesting, actually using some of the slightly cheaper lenses. So for example, this Canon 10-18 is under £170 used. So perfect kind of starter wide angle zoom. Absolutely ideal for anyone looking to get into wide angle photography, you know, and really try and test that out, really get to grips with the composition and stuff like that. There's something I've actually found very interesting, because I don't use wide angle lenses as much as I do kind of a 24-70 or something like that. So using something like this has been actually quite challenging for me. It's made me think differently about composition. So one of the things I've been really mindful of while out shooting with wide angle lenses, because I'm not so used to it, I've been trying to think about composition and how I'm gonna approach things. And part of that is because with a wide angle lens, it tends to really emphasize the foreground elements. You know, if you've got something way off in the distance, that's going to appear smaller. And I usually shoot landscape at sort of around 35mm, something like that, because I wanna capture, you know, a bit of the background and maybe a bit of foreground, but I want to get the whole scene. Whereas with the wide angle lens, like I say, a lot of emphasis is put on that kind of foreground element, which is actually a really interesting way to take a landscape photo, because it means you have to think about what is directly in front of you. There's a few different ways of doing this. You can either get up really high so that you're looking down on a landscape, so you can try and capture the whole thing, so you really don't have a foreground element so much as just capturing the whole landscape, but from a high up vantage point. Or of course, you can look for those interesting foreground elements that you can include in your photos. That's what I've been doing. I've been looking at things like having a foreground, a middle ground, and then a background element to the whole photo. So there's different layers to it. And that's a really interesting thing. It's something I try and incorporate anyway into landscape photography. But with the wide angle lenses, using the wide angle lenses, that has kind of forced me to think more about it and more critically about what I'm actually capturing, what I'm including in the photo, which I really, really like. Wide angle zooms in particular, which is mostly what I've been using. You know, I have had a couple of primes, which are very interesting, because with the primes, obviously you have to move around yourself and find the perfect position. But having a wide angle zoom does allow you a little bit more versatility, a little bit more freedom as to what you're including, as to what you're having in the photo. Again, because you can do a little bit of zooming, it doesn't have to be quite such a wide field of view. You've got a few different options. Something else I've been very aware of with a wide angle lens is that actually getting lower to the ground can really help out with your composition. It can really help out with the final image, because it's going to emphasize so much of that. You're actually going to have a really interesting kind of foreground part, and you can kind of angle it up a little bit. Another part of that, and angling it up, is actually deciding how much of the sky you want to have in your photo. You know, if you've got a very interesting dramatic sky, then with a wide angle lens, you can capture a huge amount of it. You can get this massive expanse of sky. So if it's a stormy day, if it's a really interesting dramatic sky, that can be fantastic. Whereas similarly, if it's a pretty boring sky, if it's just a clear blue sky, probably having loads of it in the photo isn't going to work out so well. So you probably then want to look at how you can reduce the amount of sky that you're actually going to have featuring in your photo. A little bit like we talked about in the landscape photography tips last Tutorial Tuesday, last week. Having a natural resting point in the photo, a natural point that your eye ends up resting on, is really important. It still absolutely applies with wide angle. The temptation with wide angle, I think, is often to just find this incredible vista and just take a photo of that, get this perfect view and just take a photo, because it's so wide you can get everything in. But you still need to have some sort of subject in the photo. It still needs to be somewhere that the eye naturally rests on. And that's still really, really important with wide angle photography. So whether it is something in the middle ground, whether you have a really interesting foreground and then it kind of naturally builds up to the background and maybe there's a sunset or something like that, you need to have somewhere that the eye is going to fall onto. Ultimately though, the main thing I've been taking away from using these used lenses, these slightly cheaper lenses, so we've tried to keep it under £500, but a lot of these are sort of under £200 as well. And again, I'll pop a full list down in the description so you can actually go and check out all the lenses for yourself. But the main thing I've been taking away is just how good a job they're able to do. Now, they're not always the fastest lenses. You know, that Canon lens, for example, is f4.5 to 5.6. So, you know, not the fastest. Generally, I would shoot landscape around sort of f8, f11 anyway. So it's really not that much of an issue for me, but it is worth being aware. They're also generally not the best build quality compared to the more expensive lenses. So they're a little bit plasticky, you know, they're a little bit less well built, but to be honest, for the price, just being able to get you into wide angle photography, into these wide angle landscapes and, you know, cityscapes and street photography and all kinds of different stuff, I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, let's take the Canon lens as an example, just because I really liked it, especially for the price. You know, you're looking at sort of somewhere around £150. I'll pop a proper link, probably a link up here, probably a link down there. You can go check it out. But used, you're looking sort of around 150, and that is such a great opportunity to be into that kind of photography. You know, if you have a Canon camera, let's say the 80D, the 90D, the 70D, something like that, you probably have a kit lens with it. Then you get the wide angle lens like this, and if you get the nifty 50, the 50mm 1.8, which is nice and cheap as well, you're pretty much good to go. You know, you've pretty much got all the tools there for most types of photography, and there's nothing holding you back from going out and just learning and getting better and perfecting it. You know, you don't have to have these super expensive lenses. You don't have to have them. Now, they do offer obviously a lot of advantages. You know, they're generally they'll be sharper. They'll have better sort of anti-flaring and anti-ghosting and stuff like that. Generally, they'll be faster as well, and especially for sort of portrait stuff. But with wide angle lenses, I've found these ones to be really nice. Now, if you have any questions about anything you've seen in the video, any of the shots, any of the lenses, anything at all, pop it down in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. I will see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.